Welcome to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, January 10th. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast. I am your host, Griffin Palmer, joined over the phone by CJ the Hitman Hickman and Jason Cabrera. What's up, guys?
What is up, man?
Not much.
Griffin, what's up?
Not much. I'm hyped to be watching playoff football. It was a interesting and in some cases not evenly called Wildcard weekend. So
not even close to evenly called.
How about that Hail Mary though?
Oh man,
no,
how about
I wasn't surprised.
No,
I wasn't surprised.
How about that catch of the year from the Seahawks? Richardson hauling that in.
Yeah, man.
Holy crap! Odell Beckham, who? Where's Ryan when we need him?
I was playing a little drinking game of how many times the analysts were going to say, "Is that Odell Beckham on the field?"
Oh, right. That got old real fast.
You get drunk doing that.
Yes,
man. But I mean, hey,
that was a face mask and a catch at the same time. It was a nice catch-face mask combo.
It really was. He could have made a really impressive catch there and killed a guy on the field at the same time.
Exactly.
That's what happens when you mash the B button.
Apparently. But I mean, hey, playoff football, it did not disappoint. I would say I was pretty entertained by almost all the games. The Oakland and Houston game, it was all right.
That just broke my heart, man. I mean, as a guy that was pulling for the Raiders, just to watch them just play like that, it was just like, man, this is tough to watch.
Yeah, but that was about the speed that we were expecting of it to be, too. We weren't expecting that to be a massive shootout, like super high-octane game. That was going to be two struggling offenses against two decent to good defenses. I mean, Houston, towards the end of the year, they ended up as a top defense. So, I mean...
Yeah.
It was a game. It wasn't a bad game. I think the other ones were better. And as much as it became kind of a blowout towards the end, I think the New York and Green Bay game was very entertaining to watch. That was probably my favorite one of the week. So, moving on.
Very good offense going on here.
Oh yeah. But with that, we'll push a little bit forward. We got plenty more to talk about the Wildcard weekend in a minute. But before I get to that, I want to remind you guys, please make sure you subscribe on iTunes and on Stitcher. Please make sure you rate and review the show. It helps us out a ton. And if you want to support the show and keep the lights on, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. You become an official member today. Get exclusive bonuses, including... exclusive bonus shows, perks, and lots of cool stuff coming down the line, including we had some people request a show, so they're going to get an exclusive show based on what they're asking about this week, so that should be fun. And, of course, keep up with us on Twitter. You can see us trash-talking each other, talking about the games, get your injury updates if you need to switch out your NFL playoff challenge lineups, whatever the case may be, on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. But we do have an amazing show for you guys today. As I mentioned before, we're going to recap Wildcard Weekend a bit. We're going to talk about a big debate. I don't know how much of a debate it'll be. We haven't talked about it. We're just going to keep it interesting. Our duds of the year. We did our studs of the year on Friday. Now we're going to talk about who we think was the biggest busts of the year. And, of course, we have all the top headlines from around the league. But let's dive back into it with our warm-up, talking about the Wildcard Weekend. So, how'd you guys do on the NFL Playoff Challenge? Did you guys have a pretty good week?
Oh, yeah, I did really good, man. I did really good. Aaron Rodgers, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. I think that's a win. That is.
I would say so. Who? How many points did you score, CJ?
I scored. What was this? 99.
99. All right, Jason, you put up 71. And
I had a problem with my receiver. Poor guy we'll talk about a little bit later with an injury. But I also had Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and the Seahawks defense, and they put up pretty decent points. So, 71.
Yeah, I had the same problem. I played a couple picks for divisional round. I sacrificed week 1 for times 2 multiplier in week 2. I had 106, so I'm leading the group out of the 3 of us. But, hey, this is a long way from being over. So, I mean, since you brought it up, I mean, a massive dud on the week is one Jordy Nelson, at no fault of his own, because he was... I can't really say head-hunted because he didn't get hit in the head, but, I mean, that was a dirty shot that he took right to the ribs, and we're going to talk about that in the news. He's looking at like he's got at least two, they said, broken ribs, or fractured, I think they said. So his status is obviously questionable. He has not been ruled out as of yet, but, I mean, that's going to hurt and, of course, affect your ability to play him for a ×2 multiplier this coming week against Dallas, which... is not a great matchup, but it's not a bad one either. I mean, we just saw Aaron Rodgers and the Packers tear up the New York Giants secondary, which ranks among the better ones of the league. So, I mean, hey, of course, I don't know about you guys. Any of you guys play for next weekend with like Ezekiel Elliott, Travis Kelce, any of those guys?
Yeah. I got
my
Kansas quarterback and
defense.
I don't have them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got Ezekiel and Tom Brady playing. So.
Okay, so you play for the times 2 with Brady. All right, I play.
Yep.
I'm playing Rodgers for the times 2 against Dallas, so that could be awesome. Should be awesome. I got Le'Veon Bell. I haven't altered my lineup yet, and I'm not too convinced I'm going to because I was playing a lot of these guys for the divisional round, trying to get multipliers. So I've still got Aaron Rodgers, Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Brown. Probably gonna switch Jordy Nelson. Just saying. Travis Kelce, Mason Crosby, Seahawks defense. But I mean, God, and if you people listening at home do follow us on Twitter, you could see us talking a lot of trash. Where did Randall Cobb come from?
Hey man, he was drinking that fountain of youth, that elixir.
He was questionable all week. Plenty of reports saying that there's a good chance he does not play, and then he is activated, and then he goes out there and puts up over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. So where was he all
Jordy
season?
Numbers.
Right.
Jordy Nelson's numbers.
From a slot guy. Devontae Adams did not pick up the slack. Randall Cobb did. So, I mean...
It's like Green Bay Packers offense for you, man.
Yep.
You're not wrong.
They're going to beat you, and they're going to beat you some way.
Probably passing.
Yep.
No news yet on Ty Montgomery either, who he got a pretty nasty-looking knee injury. He got bent over backwards over his leg. That looked bad.
Yeah, it reminded me of the David Johnson injury.
Yeah.
In the last week.
Kind of similar. So, I mean, we'll have to keep monitoring for him. We'll probably know more by Friday's show, of course. But as of right now, I haven't heard anything.
He came back into the game for a down and then went back out again.
Yeah.
So that was good. He could put some weight on it. That's a good sign.
Yeah, the question is if it's going to be something that keeps him out, if it's going to be pain-related, or was it just adrenaline that got him back on the field? Is it a sprain? We don't know. We'll know more about
Friday.
Michael
came out and then Michael came out and looked really good.
Yeah.
In his limited work. So
well, that
was something.
We shall see. I don't recommend playing any Packers running backs. How about that in your fantasy NFL playoff challenge? So, just putting that out there. Any other guys that really let you guys down other than Jordy Nelson? Obviously, no big turn-ins from plenty of players across the league, but we're talking about, obviously, this game in particular.
No, go ahead, Jay.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say my tight end kind of didn't do much, Jimmy Graham. And I thought he might wake up a little bit in the playoffs, but no, he didn't. I should have gone with Kelce.
Yeah, same here. I had Jimmy Graham. I mean, I just put him out there just because I kind of figured that they were going to win. So I feel like he probably have a better game against Atlanta. And then, my second wide receiver was Julio Jones. So, I just try to get that bonus points for next week.
That's fair. Well, I mean, if you played a Doug Baldwin, a Randall Cobb, and Antonio Brown, you're pretty happy right now. Devontae Adams, he got a ton of yards. He just didn't get all the touchdowns. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell, Thomas Rawls, Lamar Miller. As you mentioned, CJ, even Christine Michaels went out. He looked decent, but he didn't hold a candle to the Le'Veon Bells and Thomas Rawls of the world. Aaron Rodgers, obviously, he got the most yardage on the day. Russell Wilson, Matt Moore, Eli Manning, they all were in the 200s, but Aaron Rodgers, the only one to break 300 yards. So, I mean, a good week if you played the right people and some high-octane offenses going into week 2. You could get some nice multipliers out of this. Hopefully, we hear good things about Jordy Nelson, but, I mean, at this point, if his injury is what they say it is, you got to assume that if he does suit up, it's going to be mostly as a diversion. So,
yeah, it's gonna be limited. That was a pretty nasty shot he took.
Oh yeah, it was. And I don't know if you guys have ever cracked your ribs before, but it's not fun, especially going out there and taking an NFL hit. That I imagine is going to be brutal. So
I bruised my ribs, and you can barely even. I've bruised my ribs before, and you can barely even breathe with bruised ribs. I can't even imagine with fractured ribs.
Yeah, it's excruciating. So we'll see. We'll know more by Friday, of course. All right, well, with that, let's move into our top headlines from around the league. We'll start with some league headlines that primarily in Jacksonville, where they have hired interim head coach Doug Marrone as the head coach for the 2017 season. He was the former offensive line coach and assistant head coach, took over as the interim head coach, and now he is the full-fledged head coach for 2017. You guys like this hire?
Yeah, I like it. I like what they've been doing the last 2 weeks under his under his regime. So I'm hopeful for what they do for next year. I mean, it's still all going to be determined on the development and improvement of Blake Bortles, but how that offense was flourishing under his realm, it was pretty good.
Blake Bortles was definitely playing more inspired, but that could have just as easily been, hey, if the new coach comes in here, my job's not secure. I'm playing for my job now all of a sudden. So, I don't know.
Yeah, he was just putting on some leggings for him just to, get his attention.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
There you go. I was going to say, I don't really see that as far as Blake Bortles' job. I think Blake Bortles' job is nice and safe. I don't think he's going anywhere. But
I don't either.
For me, I think this was a good idea because you got a coach that's coming in that knows the personnel, doesn't have to learn the system already. He's got his system. He knows the system. He's going to maybe improve the system, we should hope. And it's it's sort of a safe hire, but he also had a lot of, there were reports of a lot of people saying, hey, you really should just make this guy the head coach. He's really good. We really like him. And when the team likes to play for a coach, that is a good sign.
That's true. But then another bit of news in Jacksonville, Tom Coughlin was hired as the executive vice president of football operations, which we all kind of thought would be an awesome fit as the head coach. So he's in the building, he's just not the head coach. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's a missed opportunity, or are you okay with this? Because I'm intrigued because I don't know what to think of Tom Coughlin as an executive VP.
I see that as a missed opportunity. I think Tom Coughlin would have been fantastic as the head coach.
I think so.
He's got a winning pedigree. He's won some Super Bowls. He's got a knack for turning quarterbacks into great quarterbacks. So I think it's a missed opportunity, but having him in the building at all is a good thing.
I agree. Do you have any thoughts, CJ?
Yeah, I saw Tom Coughlin this opportunity, basically like the nerd girl that doesn't get any attention, and as soon as you say hello to him, they just all over you. Wow. So he's been out of the NFL for a little bit, and he wanted to get back in any way possible. So I saw that how this is. But no, without joking, I think this would be a good role for him. I see it as like a very for this organization. I think it would be good just because of his experience, the eye for talent. They can be able to use him like that, and then he can just be that that basically that dad role for them. I feel like that's what they kind of need in that organization.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's going to be there. If things don't work out, maybe he can step down there, give some fatherly advice, and maybe take over. Because, like Jason said, he's shown a pedigree for turning things around and being a very successful NFL head coach. So, and of course, he wanted to be in Jacksonville. He's coached there in the past, and that's where he's trying to set up his forever home living situation. So, it's a good fit. So, we'll see.
Right.
In quarterback news, Ben Roethlisberger has shed the walking boot that he was wearing on Monday. Now, he said that his foot is fine. This is his right foot. And this comes after various reports about the severity of his foot injury. So, good news for the Steelers offense. And, you guys starting him with confidence?
Going against Kansas City, man, they got a very tough defense, man.
In Kansas City, no less.
It's going to be one heck of a game between them. I mean, I don't know if I can start him, to be real with you. I think I'll probably start a Aaron Rodgers or Wilson, or just between them two. Because I don't really like Tom Brady against Houston either. It's just going to be tough for me, man, because that's how tough that Kansas City's defense is, man. I mean, you can take your chances, but I don't. For me, I'm a little nervous starting Roethlisberger against them.
Roethlisberger on the road is always sort of a bad idea this year, and particularly against a
last couple of years
top, right? Particularly against a top defense that loves to sack the quarterback. That worries me that it's his foot, and especially since it's his plant foot. I don't necessarily start him with a lot of confidence. They got Le'Veon Bell. They may just try to run it a lot on him. If you have him and you want to start him, there's hope. I mean, you're looking at that's probably the scariest trio in the NFL right now: Brown, Bell, and Ben. But against the Kansas City at Arrowhead, I probably wouldn't start him.
I mean, they give up the 12th fewest points to the quarterback position as far as fantasy goes, and they are definitely a different animal when at home. So, it's tough. So, I mean, like, I've got Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown in my lineup, and I'm probably not going to change that because I want the multiplier, but it's a tough matchup. But it's playoff football. Anything can happen. So,
true enough.
It worries me. If I was not playing Ben Roethlisberger last week, I definitely would be looking elsewhere this week, is what I will say, because I don't expect it to be the shootout that other games look like they could become. So, that's my 2 cents. Let's see, where did I put the show doc? Running back news. Kansas City head coach Andy Reid said that Spencer Ware is ready to play in the division round. He's been dealing with some rib injuries. Looks like the rest was good for him. Spencer Ware, is that a good option for you guys starting against the Pittsburgh Steelers?
It's got potential.
I think there's what's that?
I said it got potential. I think you can be able to do it. I don't think you can judge the Steelers run defense going against Miami. Put that on Kansas City. I mean, Miami they shut down the run because they knew that's all they really had to hang their hat on was that run. So I mean, with Kansas City, I think that they got a little more play as far as they're a little more fluent when it comes to the run and the pass. So I think it has potential, man. I mean,
coming off of an injury, and I think there's better running backs available. I don't know. I think it's a little risky in this particular case. I think I don't know. It's hard to say in this particular case. Like I said, given the fact he's coming off that injury, that scares me away a little bit.
There are a lot of variables, but what if I told you that the Steelers are giving up the 5th most fantasy points to the running back position?
That's what I'm saying. You got potential, and he's a back that can be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. So, and Alex Smith is going to throw the ball to his tight ends plus his running back. So I see it having potential.
Yeah, you're not worried about Charkandrick West vulturing some of those
receptions.
You
already know in that offense he's going to get the ball a little bit. So you're just hoping for that goal line and get them touchdowns basically with him.
Yeah. All valid points. Yeah. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Let's see. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reported that Pittsburgh will apply the franchise tag to Le'Veon Bell. So this, I assume, is in the attempt to get a long-term contract done, but they want to. Maybe they're expecting this to be a long, messy road, because why wouldn't it be? He's shown that he is one of, if not the most productive running back in the league, but he hasn't played a full season in years, whether it be injury or disciplinary reasons. So that's got to be a tricky contract to negotiate. Do you guys think they get any type of contract done? If not, do you think Le'Veon Bell plays on the franchise tag?
I think after a full, healthy season, out of trouble, I think without question the deal gets done.
But you don't think it gets done going into 2017?
You might. For me, I think the deal might get done, kind of like how Michael Bennett's deal got done. It got done later on in the season. Going towards the playoffs. I think that's probably what's going to happen.
This might be a covering their butt type of a situation with Pittsburgh because, like you said, he hasn't played a full season yet, and this might be just okay. I'm going to franchise tag you. You make it halfway through the season without any incidents, then maybe we do a long-term deal, or maybe they wait till the end of the season. But either way, they're probably going to do a long-term deal with Le'Veon Bell, and I think he stays in Pittsburgh. He is just too good to let go.
I think that's definitely the concern because he's going to get paid somewhere. But he's only had one season where he's played all 16 games, and that was 3 years ago in 2014. So, I mean, that's got to be the holdup besides, disciplinary reasons and whatever the case may be, because anywhere he goes, he's going to get top 5 running back money, I assume. The question is if Pittsburgh wants to deal with the liability side of it while still paying him that much, because they, as we see right now, are knocking on the door of a 7th championship. They think they've got the formula, they've got the team to do it, and if they give a huge, top-tier running back deal to someone, that money's got to come from somewhere. Maybe they're worried about breaking up the team, and maybe they just want to see what happens with another year, because he's been in trouble with the league so many times. He's one good violation away from missing an entire season, so maybe they don't want to invest that kind of money into somebody who then might be gone for the year. Look at Martavis Bryant as an example. So it's going to be an interesting situation to monitor, and I'll be very intrigued to see what the thoughts are coming out of Le'Veon Bell's camp more than anything, because I could easily see, because he's got everything to lose playing under the franchise tag, especially as a running back, super volatile and injury-prone position. So I wouldn't be surprised if he sits if they franchise tag him. Just my 2 cents. I don't know. Do you guys think that way at all, or do you think he plays through to try and earn a bigger contract?
I think he plays through to get a bigger contract.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, we shall see. And Baltimore head coach John Harbaugh admitted that the Ravens want to add a game-breaking, quote, running back to the roster this offseason, which to me...
How disrespectful.
Yeah, I don't...
What is this, man?
As a Ravens fan, I don't get this, because I understand that there's going to be lots of big names that are probably going to be available, and there's some talent coming out, but we saw Kenneth Dixon be incredibly successful in a limited work role. They never gave him the full workload for any game, so they don't really know what they have in him, but very productive when out there, going well over 4 yards a carry. He was explosive. He's productive. He got touchdowns. He was a dangerous pass catcher. I think the only knock against him is that they weren't super comfortable with him in pass protection, but if you go back and watch the tape, he was very good in pass protection at certain points. He lit up free blitzers coming in to hit Joe Flacco. But, I mean, Jamal Charles, Adrian Peterson, Doug Martin, LaShawn McCoy, some, if not all of these guys could become free agents, whether the situation be age, injury-prone, disciplinary reasons, or just new coaching regime. Some of these guys have big contracts that teams are going to want to offload. They might end up getting cut. They could become free agents. And if they become free agents, perhaps that's what they're looking for. But as a Ravens fan, I know Ozzie Newsome is not a big fan of going out and giving big contracts to anybody. So I don't know if that's what they're really doing or if they're looking to trade. It perplexes me, because I really like what they have in Kenneth Dixon. I think he showed plenty of promise in his rookie year, and if they gave him the workload at any point for an entire game, 2 or 3, I think then we'd have a much clearer look at what they know, because they see them in practice. But for us, the fans watching games, and game film is arguably more important than practice film, we never got a chance to see it happen. So I don't know what to think about this.
I think you guys got on your hands is a young up-and-coming Ray Rice, and not as far as actions, but just on the field. You know what I'm saying? Just on the field. Because from the games I did see him, even in his college tape, man, he's one heck of a running back.
Yep.
And when I told you this, like, when we was doing this show in our early infancy ages, man, I said, hey, man, Kenneth Dixon, that's a good pickup for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And if you guys play him, he's going to be a beast. You were still a little unsure about it, but when that boy actually touches the field and you get him going, he is nice in your guys' offense. I think you guys are sleeping on him. I don't know if you guys want to go for a guy like Leonard Fournette, out of LSU. Maybe you want that big bruiser type back, but for your offense, I think works best is a guy that can be able to catch the ball and be shifty. And I think that's what Kenneth Dixon is a shifty running back that can be able to help Flacco in the passing game as far as a dump off.
I think this is because of the DNA of Baltimore, and that DNA is you guys are smash mouth football team. You like to smash the ball up the field down the middle, and I think he looks at Kenneth Dixon, or they look at Kenneth Dixon more as like a slasher, somebody who's a third down type of a guy, and they want that big LeGarrette Blunt, Richard looking dude. Yeah, exactly. Looking guy slamming, big body back coming through there. I think that's what they think they want. And the problem is they're making a big mistake, because Kenneth Dixon, like you said, every time he touched the ball, he looked very, very good. And you give him the kind of workload that he needs, you might have yourself a budding star, like you said, a Ray Rice or that kind of a person coming in there and making that team go.
Yeah,
exactly. and that's what you need. Now, do you need a big bruiser? Yeah, absolutely. I'd say you need a goal line guy, but
which we don't have.
Which you don't have. I wouldn't sit there and call that a game-breaking running back. I mean, I think
No.
your game-breaking running back is Kenneth Dixon, and that bruiser is a guy you use in the red zone.
I mean, that's the way I have to kind of think that they're taking this, because I don't know what they're looking at as the solution. Because while I agree that old school smash mouth Ravens football is tough defense and run the ball, and, kill clock, north-south runner, you want to wear down the opposing team's defense. And yeah, that's something that we've gotten away from in recent years as we've had the Ray Rice era on, shifty running backs, the Cam Cameron system, the especially Gary Kubiak with this very open stretch run schemes. That was really good for shifty, speedy, smaller backs that can hide behind the offensive line and explode through some opening that might open up. That's great. But Marty Mornhinweg, I don't think that's necessarily what he's looking for. And not only that, this is a guy who was supposed to open up the deep pass and run the ball, yet all we saw was an astronomical pass-first, pass-often offense even once we switched to him. So he's being retained shockingly to me, as the offensive coordinator. Everyone thought that he was probably going to be gone. So I guess with an offseason for him to install his offense, maybe we'll see what we all expected to see when he took over as the head coach. For me right now, I really just, I don't know. It's a lot of variables, and I don't know which way it's going to go. So I guess the draft and free agency are going to be interesting for me, not only for the NFL, but for my Baltimore Ravens. I don't know what they have up their sleeve, but Ozzie Newsome always has something that he's thinking about, so we'll see if something actually happens or not. In wide receiver news, we already touched on Jordy Nelson. Again, he was diagnosed with at least 2 fractured ribs on his left side. He has not yet been ruled out for the divisional round at Dallas, so I mean, tough injury, painful injury, and if he plays, it's going to be probably with a Kevlar vest, so he's going to be weighed down, and I mean, probably as a diversion, I would imagine. The Packers go 3 wide a lot, so there's no reason that they wouldn't use him to just open up some zones. I would not expect a ton out of Jordy Nelson if he plays at all. So we'll keep moving since we already talked about him a little bit in depth earlier on. And it is being said that Jarvis Landry will almost certainly be getting a contract extension this offseason. So is that exciting news for you guys? Or CJ, were you hoping to see him I know you're a big fan of Landry. Were you hoping to see him go elsewhere?
It's, him, to be excited about him, for me, I need to see more of improvement in Ryan Tannehill. And I know a lot of people can say, arguably that he took a big step in his career this year. And I can get that. I can see that, but I need to see a little more. And I think another year in Adam Gates' system, man, it can be good for Landry, and it can be good for Ryan Tannehill, because you already know they have a connection. But just to be able to get another year under this system, get more comfortable, be able to add some more things, because Landry, he got the touches, and that's what he's known for, but his touchdowns took a big drop this year, and that's something, as far as fantasy-wise, you can't really have. You need to get those. I mean, you want the yardage and the touchdown. You don't want to have either or, what I'm saying? Right. So I kind of need that for me comfortably. I mean, he's deserving of it. I think he's one heck of a player, but I would definitely love for him to be in another offense, but I'll give it another year just to see what these guys can be able to do.
I mean, it's a great situation he's in. I think the quarterback, like you said, is the big negative. But Adam Gase is a great offensive coordinator. He is going to the last year of the contract, so I guess that shows that the team is wanting to commit to him. They don't want him to... I can't talk tonight. They don't want him to hit the open market because they think he'll be worth a lot, which, I mean, he has shown to be a very productive receiver, especially being that slot guy. He gets a ton of catches every single year. A great PPR option for us here. Right. And, I mean, he's going to his 4th and final year of his contract. He is an unrestricted free agent going into 2018, so I'm not surprised by this. I'm intrigued to see what they value him at and see how this works out and if it gets done before the year starts. But at least we know that the team wants to play. And a young guy. He joined, he's going to be 24 next year, so he's definitely hitting his prime, as we would say.
Future.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to watch. I don't know. That we'll see. And moving on to other news, Indianapolis plans to bring back head coach Chuck Pagano for 2017. This was kind of up in the air. Chuck Pagano said he planned to be back, and now we have word that it does seem like that will be the case for at least another year. He does have a few years left on his contract. So with that, we are going to move into our topic of the day, which is our duds of the year. Now, there might be some name calling here. We might be a little mean, but it's just because these guys let us down a lot. So we're probably going to be a little bit harsh on them. It's not that we don't like these guys, because otherwise we wouldn't have drafted them, but they definitely let your fantasy teams down. And I'll put it to you this way, guys. Do you want to go in chronological order like we always do? Do you want to jump to a different position? What do you guys want to do? We can.
Oh, we do chronological order, man.
All
I
right.
like that.
We can just do that. That's fine. Just trying to keep it interesting. Then we will start with the quarterback position, starting with Ben Roethlisberger. He let you down this year. He finished as the quarterback 14, well outside of a quarterback 1. He was drafted as the quarterback 6. He played in all but one game. He was good for 3,819 yards, 29 touchdowns. So, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger right there, 310 points. Russell Wilson, not far behind him, played in all the games, 4,219 yards, 21 touchdowns. But he also rushed for another touchdown and 259 yards, so that made up a big difference. Russell Wilson finished as the quarterback 15. He was drafted as the quarterback number 3. Carson Palmer, drafted as the quarterback number 8, finished as the quarterback number 18, played in all the games, 4,233 yards, 26 touchdowns. Cam Newton, drafted as the quarterback 1, finished as your quarterback 19, played in all the games, 3,509 yards, 19 touchdowns, rushed for another 5 touchdowns with 359 yards on the ground. And Eli Manning, drafted as the quarterback 10, finished as the quarterback 21, played in all the games, 4,027 yards, 26 touchdowns. Guys, what do you think of these guys? Who let you down the most?
This one's easy.
I'm about to say. I think I feel where Jason's going with this. I think you don't even have to go any further past 4. Like Cam Newton should be your biggest dud in the quarterback position. I mean, a guy that was a fantasy darling last year, man. That magical Cinderella run, and finish it with an MVP candidacy, number 1 player of the of the top 100, that guy, and he just goes out there and just bombs it this year. I mean, just terrible, just awful. And you spend a number 1 pick on this guy, and just awful, man. I think without hands down, it's got to be Cam Newton.
Especially for you, CJ. You had him ranked as your quarterback number 1 coming into the year.
Yeah, man. Big drop.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, CJ is right in line with me on this one. Number 1 overall quarterback down to number 19, 3,500 yards, the least amount of yards of everybody on this list. 19 touchdowns, the least amount of touchdowns of everybody on this list. 14 interceptions, second, tied for second most on this list. Is garbage. This was a garbage year for Cam Newton, especially coming off of a Super Bowl appearance and an MVP nod, and just all these things that piled up. And everybody, I was never high on Cam Newton. I've never been a fan of him, but even I was shocked at how badly he did this year and how badly his team did. And that's the other thing. I can't even look at 3 of the names on this list because those 3 teams made the playoffs. You make the playoffs, I don't care. You're not a dud. You made the playoffs, Carson Palmer and Cam Newton are the only 2 on this list that I even see. And with Carson Palmer, we know the issues in Arizona. You had a lot of issues with that line. You had a lot of issues with drop passes, but he still threw for 4,200 yards. I mean, he threw for what? 800 yards more than Cam Newton? With that offensive line?
Yep.
No. Cam Newton is definitely the dud of the year for me.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I mean, that's crazy. And you can say that Cam Newton has more talent at the wide receiver position than Carson Palmer, and Carson Palmer still outworked him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, it's a clean sweep. I agree. Cam Newton, whether I agreed with it or not, he was going as the quarterback 1 in fantasy, and with that people were investing as high as second-round picks with him. I don't remember consensus where he landed. I can look that up in just a second. But I mean, bottom line, you draft a guy, you're investing. If you're me at least, definitely at least a third-round pick if you're really reaching for a quarterback. Let's see, he was going as the 4th pick in the 3rd round as his average draft position. So people reaching for a quarterback, and you think, okay, I grabbed this guy. He's the league MVP. He put up a monster season last year, and I'm set. And then he goes out there and finishes almost outside of a quarterback 2. This guy was not even streamable because he would completely not show up in great matchups. So, I mean, as a whole, Cam Newton, for all the reasons you guys have stated, he is a massive bust. Based on the draft capital you invested in him, where he finished, he's definitely clean sweep for me as the quarterback biggest dud of the year. So, I'll record that. And with that, we'll move on to the running backs, of which there are a few, because there's a couple different ways to look at this, I think, but I'm intrigued to see what you guys think before I weigh in. We'll start with Lamar Miller, who was drafted as the quarterback number 5, running back number 5, finished as the running back 18. He played in all but one game, 268 attempts, 1,073 yards, 5 touchdowns. He had another touchdown receiving. Todd Gurley, drafted as the quarterback 1, finished as the quarterback why do I keep saying quarterback? Running back 20. He played in all the games. 885 yards, 6 touchdowns. Doug Martin, drafted as the running back 12, finished as the running back 52, played in 8 games, 421 yards, 3 touchdowns. Thomas Rawls, drafted as the running back 15, finished as the running back 57, 349 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jeremy Langford, drafted as the running back 20, finished as the running back 60, 200 yards, 4 touchdowns. Arian Foster, drafted as the running back 23, finished as 107. Obviously retired in the middle of the season. 55 yards, another 78 yards receiving. Jamal Charles, drafted as the running back 8, finished as 110. 3 games, 40 yards, a touchdown. Adrian Peterson, drafted as the running back 4, finished as the running back 124. 72 yards, 8 yards receiving, finished with 6 fantasy points on the season. So, these are your candidates for dud of the year at the running back position. I want your guys' 2 cents before I weigh in here.
Go ahead, Jay.
I don't know if I can put Adrian Peterson on this list. I mean, he got injured. I don't know. I understand that we're just looking purely at numbers. Because if you're looking purely at numbers, you got to go Adrian Peterson. I mean, he was ranked 4th, and he finished 124th. That's insanity. But it wasn't performance. So for me, I got to go a little further up the list here, and I mean, one of the obvious ones for me is Todd Gurley because he was number 1 overall, and did not deliver on that number 1 position. However, he still showed up. He still played well. He still scored 155 points. I think if I'm looking at this list and I'm thinking of what I would have gone in for some of these guys and where they ended up, I think I got to go with Jamal Charles. I mean, not Jamal Charles. I'm sorry. I'm looking at something wrong here. Thomas Rawls. Mine would be Thomas Rawls. Number 15 overall, ended 57th. Again, another injury, but not as much, as Adrian Peterson had to deal with on the year. He should have done better this year, especially given what kind of an offense we're talking about. I think Thomas Rawls for me.
I definitely agree, Jason. He was going to be one of the guys on my list. I know I was a big, champion. Not a champion. I was a big cheerleader for this guy this season.
Be a champion.
I just strive to be a champion going into this season. So that's one guy I was looking at. Another guy that I was giving Griffin crap about going into the season, man, was definitely Jamal Charles. I mean, I kind of saw the right on the raw just because how they were distributing the ball between their running backs. I know when he's healthy, he had that rub, but he just wasn't bouncing back from that past injury. So I kind of saw that he was going to have a fall off like that. But for me, man, I know this is the obvious choice, man, But I just got to hit the nail on the coffin, man. Look, it's got to be Todd Gurley. For me personally, I'm not surprised, just because going into this season, I knew what was going on in our offense and how bad he was going to be. Because look, once you have a season that he had the season before, and now everybody's got film on you. Now everybody's got the eyes on you. Everybody sees that you are the guy in that offense. They're going to shut it down. And for an offense that did not add any pieces to be able to complement this guy, this is what's going to happen. He's going to get shut down, and that's exactly what happened. And then you added, even to make it even more obvious that this dude was going to get shut down, you didn't upgrade their quarterback position. You got a guy, you picked up a guy that's a rookie that didn't even play until towards the end of the season. And then he's basically like a baby in a gym with meatheads. Like, that's not going to work. Like, the baby ain't going to do no work, ain't going to lift nothing. He's just going to be just standing there looking at you just like, why am I here? And that's exactly why I was wondering, why are you out there? What's the guy's name? The quarterback. Why is his name? That guy, the loser. That guy. Him. Yeah. So basically, Todd Gurley was going to get stuck with the short end of the stick. That's why he's got to be the top dud there. And I just wasn't surprised that he was going to be the top guy there, because they just didn't add any pieces for offense.
Jared Goff, by the way.
Jared Goff, there you go.
I thought you meant Jared Goff, but I wasn't sure if I had zoned out and missed something, because I couldn't figure out why you guys didn't know Jared Goff's name. So I was like, I'm just not going to weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, because he wasn't doing anything for me to know his name, so I can't be mad at me.
Yeah. For the record, yeah, CJ, you were by far the highest on Thomas Rawls. You had him as the number 10 running back. I was all the way down at 19, so there's some. That was one of our bigger discrepancies in the higher rankings. So we have Thomas Rawls, and we have your final answer was Todd Gurley.
Todd Gurley. All
right. So
I respect that.
Yeah, for me, I concur with a lot of things you both said. And it really comes down to the fact that, and kind of along with what we've said up to this point, injuries are completely random. Some people are more prone to them, so you can factor that in. But you can't, if someone gets hurt, they get knocked out, you can't hold that against them, because it happens. Some injuries are freak accidents, lacerated organs, for instance. I wouldn't even know how to hit somebody to make that happen to them. So, I mean, things like that I take out of the equation. So as far as I'm concerned, Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles, Arian Foster, I think deserves to be on this list just because he was banged up, but then he retired in the middle of the season, so that gave no chance of coming back, because I think the timetable was that he would make a return, but it would probably not be till late. Jeremy Langford, he lost his starting job, and he got banged up, so that really hurt your team. Thomas Rawls, he got hurt, he came back, he played hard, he had some really good games and a couple really bad ones, so I mean, you were playing with fire there, though he had a very good performance in the Wildcard weekend. Doug Martin, he played so bad that he lost his starting job, and then he got suspended from the league, so he's going to be gone for at least the next couple of weeks going into next year. And then you've got these two guys, Lamar Miller, who was banged up the entire season and dealing with a huge workload and an offense that had to run through him because the quarterback was completely useless in Brock Osweiler. And then Todd Gurley, who is my hands-down answer to this question. And it's for a lot of the reasons why I said Cam Newton. You drafted this guy as the number one running back. He was consensus across the industry as the number one or top 2-3 running back. He was a consensus top 5 pick, period, in drafts. That includes the big 3 wide receivers. He was going as a top 4, top 5 pick. So that draft capital, plus the fact that he didn't get injured, is why he's the biggest dud to me. Because look, those guys who are banged up, if they're hurt, they have bad matchups, or they're out, whatever the case may be, I can replace that. But Todd Gurley, you know what he's capable of. You know he was getting the volume week to week. You know when he had good matchups, and he just never performed for you, especially not to that draft capital. So though he finished second highest on this list, he is by far the biggest dud of the year for me at the running back position. You drafted him number 1 overall. He finished 20th, and he gave you no week-winning performances. So Todd Gurley is the dud for me on the season, locking it in, and that's 2-1. So let me put that down. Did that sway you,
Yeah.
Jason, or are you still locked into Rawls? I just am curious.
You know,
Hearing arguments.
I'll go ahead. Let's make it a clean sweep. I had Todd Gurley all year for me, and you're absolutely right. He should have done a lot better. He had a lot of touches, didn't get hurt. You swayed me. Let's make it a clean sweep.
All right.
Todd Gurley.
Clean sweep for Todd Gurley. All right.
Clean sweep, baby.
2 for 2. Moving on to wide receivers. Now, this should be fun as well. Starting with Brandon freaking Marshall. Drafted kind of low for what I was seeing him going for, but seems to like everybody was smarter than me. He went as the wide receiver number 9. I think I had him as my wide receiver number 5. And
Ooh-wee.
I mean,
buddy.
I can bring up those stats if you'd give me a sec, but I'll come back to it. But don't laugh at me. I had reasons. But he finished as the wide receiver number 52.
Good God.
Outside of flex consideration, he played in all 15 games. 60 for 129 targets, 788 yards, 3 touchdowns. Alshon Jeffrey, 12 games, 821 yards, 2 touchdowns. Randall Cobb. 18 overall, finished 57th overall. Played in
my goodness.
Yep, missed 2 games, 610 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jeremy Maclin, drafted 22 overall, finished 75th overall. He had 536 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sammy Watkins, drafted as the number 15 wide receiver, ended as the number 87. 430 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then, because of all the narrative going into the year, he still was not drafted super high, but in fantasy circles that really knew what they were talking about, he went much higher than this. But consensus, he went as the wide receiver 46, finished as the wide receiver 97. Chip Kelly's system failed miserably in San Francisco. Did not live up to any of the hype. It's 267 yards, 3 touchdowns. He missed 3 games, to be fair, I guess. So, that being said, who, or did I leave someone out? I'll even open the floor up to you guys. Who is the dud at wide receiver for the 2016 season?
I don't need anybody else. I'm going to just go ahead and just go off of this list right here.
Yeah,
Now, question. Is there any way I can do like Dragon Ball Z, fusion earrings to put Brandon Marshall and Randall Cobb together? Is there any way I could do that? No? Okay.
I won't allow it. I shoot it down.
That would work. That'd be hands down the winner.
Yeah, because I feel like that's just appropriate for this situation.
I shoot it
well, you
down.
know what? I'll just pick one. Like, I see the trend you got going on here. So listen, man, look, I think you could go. I'm looking at this list. I see injuries, with Jeremy Maclin and Sammy Watkins. Me personally, I didn't even look at both of those wide receivers as first round picks just because of the situation. Alshon Jeffries, he's been falling off to me. Didn't really look at him as a number 1 receiver for your fantasy. So I'm going to just go off of the guys that, one of our hosts here, a guy that he was banging the table for. He said that he was going to do great because of the quarterback situation and the camaraderie and the chemistry they have going on. That he's a guy that could lead your team and lead you weeks. So I'm just going to go Brandon Marshall here because I saw this coming. I saw that the trash that Fitzpatrick was, he showed me what he was, and I knew that eventually the NFL was going to crack down on him. And because he is Brandon Marshall's quarterback, Brandon Marshall was going to suffer because of the garbage that he has at quarterback. And it didn't even help that after they put Fitzy down, they had Geno Smith for a little bit. And then once Geno Smith got up out of there, he had the Petty machine throwing him the ball. And you knew that was going to be just nothing but doo-doo. So, man, listen, I think, for me, my guy as a dud, as a straight garbage in this position, it's Brandon Marshall, man.
He's enjoying that way too much.
You feel better, CJ?
Oh, I feel so good. So good.
I think there's some names that could go on this list that aren't on this list, like a John Brown.
I considered John Brown. I definitely considered him.
But sickle cell is not something you can definitely think. But someone like a Michael Floyd, though, definitely. I mean, my receivers over there in Cardinal. I mean, he should have had a fantastic year, and he just did not.
Allen Robinson was on this list.
He finished.
Allen Robinson. I was going to bring him up too.
Than all of them.
Yeah, he finished higher, but he still didn't do what he should have done this year. However, I'm going to go ahead and also agree with CJ again. Brandon Marshall, come on, man. This guy should have been much, much better this year. And it didn't matter who threw him the ball. Okay, he had, 3 different quarterbacks throwing him the ball or something this year. He sucked whoever was throwing him the ball. Okay, and he had dropped passes. And by the way, this is the only guy that played all 15 games on this list. Okay, so 788 yards, that's garbage. So Brandon Marshall, he's better than that. He's a dud this year.
Hey Griffin, before you make your point, just 1 second. Maybe Brandon Marshall can take some lessons from Duke. Duke Hopkins, because a couple years ago he had 3 quarterbacks throw him the ball and he still did good. I mean, that's just something.
Anyway,
to put out there. This is something to put out there. I'm just saying.
Anyway.
So I completely dropped the ball because I meant to put DeAndre Hopkins on this list.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
Oh yeah, forgot about DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm finding all these problems right now as I'm looking through all this because I'm looking at our consensus rankings on our website, and apparently I didn't submit the update going towards the end of the draft season because it has me with Brandon Marshall as number 9, where he, in my personal rankings, he went into the season as my number 6 wide receiver. So, oops. Apparently a couple things didn't refresh, and I'll have to figure out what went wrong there. DeAndre Hopkins, why did I forget about you? Please. Oh, man. And now, of course, my browser's not working because I was going to read his stats, too, to try and sway you guys away from
no, hands down, still got to be Marshall.
No, it's still going to be Marshall, dude. 954 yards, 4 touchdowns for DeAndre Hopkins. That's still better.
Yeah, it's still
than
better.
That's still better than anybody on this.
It's the Marsh man, and he had to give up the car too. Because remember that bet he made with Antonio Brown?
Oh yeah,
he had to give up the car too.
No, he didn't give up the car. He gave up the value of the car to a charity. So.
Oh, that's what it was.
Well, that's what they ended up settling on.
Little cheater.
Oh, my browser is completely frozen. I was gonna find out who. I was gonna try and make an argument to see who was drafted higher. I know Hopkins was drafted higher, so
yeah, he was drafted higher. But I mean, it's not. Listen, it's not about Duke right now. This is about Marshall. So let's focus. Don't try to. I know what you're trying to do. You're gonna do that Griffin thing, try to divert the attention off of your baby. Let's focus on your baby, all right? Your baby is the star right now. Let's focus on him.
What if I just refuse to answer the question?
Hey, listen, it's still 2-1. I mean, no matter what you say.
I know, right? It doesn't matter what I say.
You're an analyst, Griffin. You're an analyst, man. Give us your pick. Come on.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Be like a stern dad and just say how disappointed you are in your son.
I am disappointed. All right. Okay. I would say DeAndre Hopkins. He's not on the list, so I will go with Brandon Marshall.
Yeah, there you go.
And yes, he sunk me in so many leagues because I had full faith in the guy. I believed in what he was capable of doing. I thought that he would do it all again this year, and maybe even better with more time in the system. Everything was pointing up. They got their quarterback back, and the whole system just fell apart, top to bottom. Terrible throws. He was missed wide open. He was banged up playing through injuries all season long. But the fact that he played through them makes it even worse because then you have to debate, do I start him, do I sit him, as opposed to some of these guys like a Jeremy Maclin or a Randall Cobb who, when they were really banged up, they just sat out a game or two. So all those things put together, and the fact that I can't divert somewhere else because my browser is frozen, I will go, unfortunately, with my boy Brandon Marshall, who, do you guys think he's even a Jet next year?
Me personally, no. I think
he's lucky, no.
This,
huh?
Didn't we talk about this?
We did, but there's all this new information talking about with, the complete overhaul of the coaching regime with the, I won't say emergence, but the now seen and developed Quincy Enunwa and Robbie Anderson mixed with a healthy returning Eric Decker. Do they keep the contract of Brandon Marshall, who is, I think, 33? He'll be 34 next season. So do you think they hold on to him?
No, I think well, go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, I doubt it. I don't think so. I think they're putting together a new team there. You got a new head coach. who's trying to build something. I think that Marshall ends up going somewhere else that needs a veteran, to help with that receiving room. So I don't think so. I think they look to add some younger pieces.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think for him, it'd be better for him to get out of there. He's not that guy. I mean, you saw when Petty got the nod to be the starting quarterback, his production plummeted. I mean, they're going younger, and I think it'd be better for him to. I'm trying to remember the teams that I mentioned that he could probably go to, but I think I mentioned your Ravens, maybe the Cardinals, and I think the Eagles, one of them like that. Man, just for that veteran presence, you know what I mean, and he can be able to get some more production. But I think this Jets team is just a graveyard for him if he did stay there for another season. That'd just be a bad decision for him.
Yeah. Yeah, look, now that I got my browser working again, I think it's kind of a wash between Brandon Marshall and DeAndre Hopkins, because Hopkins was drafted higher, finished higher, but yeah, they both were massive letdowns. But regardless, you guys win. It's Brandon Marshall, so moving on.
Too, man.
Yeah, but now I've got DeAndre Hopkins. I've got DeAndre Hopkins typed into the doc now, so it's a real thing. I'm just saying. All right,
954 yards.
It doesn't matter. We're moving on. Tight ends. You guys both outvoted me anyway, so I can't unless I was to sway you, which I don't have enough points to sway you because Brandon Marshall.
Huzzah!
Anyway, tight ends. How we doing on time? Oh wow, we're running pretty late. Jason Witten, drafted as the tight end number 16. He did finish as the tight end number 14, so he did technically advance, but I know lots of people were expecting him to be a late-round steal that could finish as a tight end 1, especially with a rookie quarterback coming in. Played all the games, 673 yards, 3 touchdowns, only good for 83 fantasy points. Dwayne Allen, ooh, he's got a vote coming his way. 14 overall pick, finished as 19. He should have been lower. That just shows how bad the position was. Played in 14 games, missed 1, 406 yards, 6 touchdowns. Gary Barnidge, drafted number 7 overall, finished number 20, 612 yards, 2 touchdowns, Rob Gronkowski, drafted number 1 overall, finished as the number 22. Tyler Eifert, drafted number 9, finished number 24. And Julius Thomas, drafted number 8, finished number 29. Just trying to speed it up a little bit. So, your thoughts, gentlemen?
For me, I mean, just a quick rundown. I already knew what Jason Witten's role was going to be in that offense. Yeah, I heard a lot of noise saying that he should have a lot of numbers. But, as the weeks go on...
Short check down route with a quarterback who doesn't like to go deep. It made sense. I mean, the narrative was there.
You saw that he was good. He got the yardage, but he just wasn't getting the touchdowns. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall, I think, after like 5 weeks. Just watching that Cowboys offense. Dwayne Allen, never really liked him. He just was like a blocking tight end to me in that offense, even though they wanted to move him into a pass catching tight end. Gary Barnidge, RG3, enough said. Gronkowski, he was hurt. I mean, that's something I can't, put that on. Same thing with Tyler Eifert. He was hurt too. I know I was a big cheerleader for him this year, but that injury was just tough, man. I think for me, hands down, it's got to be Julius Thomas, just because of what was told to me and what was supposed to be another step for him. It was supposed to be that big year he had with Peyton Manning. That's something that they were saying that they were going to be able to do with him in this season. And him and Blake Bortles have a good connection, that they were going to use him more, and he was going to be on that level of Dwayne Allen, Travis Kelce, all that stuff. And he was nothing like that. Granted, once again, this goes back to the quarterback, because it all has to do with the quarterback. But even when he did get his opportunities, he still was garbage. I mean, only 4 touchdowns out of the whole year. That's not good, especially as a guy that you're supposed to look at as a starting tight end. I mean, that's garbage. It's not good. And the yardage, 281 yards. I see that yardage in high school football. That's not good for an NFL tight end. I think Julius Thomas, hands down, is my pick. Is a garbage dud for the tight ends.
He was placed on IR. He missed some time. Sorry.
I was going to say, here's why I don't agree with you, CJ. He was injured. I mean, he only played 9 games. He didn't do great when he did play. I will grant you that. He definitely did not play well. However, you got a guy that played 14 games who only scored 2 more touchdowns than Julius Thomas, who missed a ton of time. My pick is Dwayne Allen. I mean, come on. 35 out of 55, 14 games played, 406 yards. That is garbage. That is straight, stinky, nasty garbage. And there were games he literally scored 0 points. Literally. Like, he could have just not even shown up and done as well. So, Dwayne Allen's my pick.
Yep. All right. For me, this is hands down between Dwayne Allen and Gary Barnidge because, again, I can't really let injuries sway me too much because that is just something that you cannot account for going into the year. So, I mean, obviously you can see who's injury prone and make adjustments to your draft stock, but again, you never know what's going to happen. And so Gronk, though, clearly he was the tight end number 1 taken as a first round pick. He finished as a tight end 2 barely because he missed a ton of games. Can't fault that. Tyler Eifert, we knew was going to come into the season late. So that, I think, has more merit because you drafted him knowing that he was going to miss some time. At least if you listened to our show, you knew that. And he missed a chunk of time, and he wasn't able to pick up enough steam to jump the ranks. But I think given another couple weeks, he would have probably gotten there because he was being productive. So Tyler Eifert, I would throw more into this because he didn't get hurt late. He got hurt early. Well, he did actually get hurt late, but that my point is, too, obviously, him missing the beginning of the year. And Julius Thomas banged up throughout the entire year, so I got to throw that out. Jason Witten finished better than he was drafted, so it is what it is. Kind of a letdown because I get the narrative of what people thought he would do, but he still gave a increase on his value. So Dwayne Allen, Gary Barnidge. And it comes down to Dwayne Allen, who was drafted 14th overall, and Gary Barnidge, who was drafted 7th overall. But Gary Barnidge finished lower than Dwayne Allen. So in that light, I kind of have to vote Gary Barnidge because you invested a higher draft stock in him. He finished lower. He got less touchdowns, though he was getting better yardage than Dwayne Allen. But here's the key difference. Talking about injuries, Gary Barnidge played all 15 games. So I kind of have to lean Gary Barnidge right now. Since we have a 3-way tie, does anyone's argument sway anyone, or are we all kind of locked in?
Here's my issue with Gary Barnidge. I agree with CJ. I agree with CJ on Gary Barnidge. Gary Barnidge didn't have a quarterback.
No, he didn't.
He didn't have a quarterback to throw him the ball.
No, but that you could say the same thing about Brandon Marshall, who we just talked about, or anybody else. The bottom line, at the end of the day, he was a fantasy dud at the tight end position.
Yeah, but Dwayne Allen had Andrew Luck throwing him the ball.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, come on. He had one of the better quarterbacks in the league throwing the ball to him and couldn't make it work. And with Gary Barnidge, you got a team in Cleveland that was just absolute horrid this year. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wouldn't even look at Gary Barnidge. I'm like, that whole team was garbage. If you drafted a Cleveland Brown this year, you should have known better.
I'll put it this way: us as analysts knew, especially with RG3 at the helm, to stay away from Gary Barnidge coming into the year. Mm-hmm. I think we all had him rated much lower than a lot of people were taking him. I'd have to look at the actual rankings. But, we all had him around double digits or lower. So that's one thing. 2, like you said, Dwayne Allen, he had an all-star quarterback throwing him the ball. So I get the argument completely. If I'm looking at this from the masses perspective, it's Gary Barnidge. If I'm looking at it from the I don't like to use the word expert, but from the much more invested and analytics and people who are up on their news stuff, it is Dwayne Allen. So, I mean, for our perspective, I'll go Dwayne Allen so we have a winner right now. But but depending on how you look at this, I think you have to go Gary Barnidge for the masses. But I'll go Dwayne Allen just for the sake of continuing the conversation and keeping the ball rolling. So Dwayne Allen, I guess, is our dud, but honestly, it's splitting hairs for me.
Honestly, though, Griffin, you could say the entire tight end position this year. I mean, it was bad. Even the top tier guys disappeared for a lot of the year.
Oh, it's true.
So it's rough. That's a rough one.
Well, it's like I said in Friday's show. There was a stat saying that this is the lowest that the position group has scored as a total overall since, I think they said 2004. So, I mean, this was a horrid season from the tight end. So, Yeah, I agree. Unless you were able to bankroll one of those top-tier guys who still let you down week to week, you were basically streaming other positions trying to make up the points. Because streaming the tight ends, there was no rhyme or reason. Great matchups didn't matter. Bad matchups didn't matter. Everyone was good or they were bad, depending on seemingly almost nothing. And as a whole, everybody finished disappointingly so compared to what we thought their totals were going to be going into the year. And then, of course, your big guys.
Damn you, Greg Olson.
Yeah, well, Greg Olson fell off. Travis Kelce got hot late. Obviously, Jordan Reed and Rob Gronkowski, they both are injury prone and they got hurt, so they fell out. Zach Ertz didn't come on till late. Whatever the case may be. So we'll say Dwayne Allen just to keep the ball rolling because I have a huge grudge against Dwayne Allen because I had a lot of stock in him. So I'm okay with it. I'm just saying
it's
that
a
I
personal
think.
Thing.
Yeah, it's personal. It's definitely personal. But I think Gary Barnidge is much more based on what he did last year to where he was drafted this year, why he was a bigger dud. But whatever.
Yeah.
We'll go with the vote, Dwayne Allen. So then we'll finish this off in the fashion that we did last week with the studs. Who's the dud of the year? Is it Cam Newton, Todd Gurley, Brandon Marshall, or Dwayne Allen?
No. Cam Newton. Cam Newton. Come on. MVP of the league, went to the Super Bowl, and just not good this year.
But he wasn't drafted until the third round, where Todd Gurley was a consensus first-round pick.
That's fine. That's fine. However, you can say that. However, you're still talking about the MVP of the entire league.
Yeah, but for your standard draft formats, they're talking about a guy who was drafted as a top 5 pick to a guy who was drafted as the number 4 pick in the third round. So, but you're still locked into. I mean, look, it's a fine argument. I'm not saying that it's a bad argument. I'm just putting perspective out there why I'm personally in with CJ here saying Todd Gurley, who was drafted on average as the second pick in the first round.
Okay.
So with that, I have to go Todd Gurley.
I love that. I love that argument, Jason. It was very.
He
Donald
was the
Trump,
MVP.
Hillary Clinton. That's fine. That's fine.
That's fine. All right. Well,
yeah, man. Todd Gurley, hands down, man. I mean, the guy was drafted first overall, number 1 running back in a lot of people's rankings, and he just fell off. Once again, I'm just not surprised. I don't know how people were surprised of this, but a lot of people thought that he can overcome the situation that he was in. I had no faith in that.
CJ, you had him ranked as your number 1 running back.
Todd Gurley? I didn't have him ranked number 1.
Yes, you did. Look, I'll look at the website right now. Well, please hold.
Hold on.
Look, here it is. I mean, how can people be surprised by that? Because he did so well last year. I mean, he stepped in and he was a beast last year. He played fantastic, and he came in and his first game that he started was against Arizona, and I was watching this game. He crushed us, and we were a very good defense. So I can understand people's confusion as to why this guy came out and did nothing. So I get it. I absolutely get it. But for me, like I said, Cam, I mean, you expected more numbers. You expected great, big, massive games. You expected rushing yards. You expected a lot of touchdowns, a lot of that, and you didn't get it. Like I said, I'm like you with Todd Gurley. I'm not surprised. Cam Newton was very up and down last year. He had some great games and he had some not great games. So I wasn't surprised at all. But a lot of people had to be, because this had to be the number 1 quarterback on everybody's mind.
Yeah. I could see them definitely looking at a repeat performance as far as what he did last year. I mean, just because the nucleus of that team, as far as offense-wise, was basically still the same. That's my only thing. The difference, what I'm basically trying to say with my argument with Todd Gurley is everything was basically the same as Cam Newton. And I feel like that's what hurt him, because they didn't add any other pieces to be able to divert their attention away from him. I mean, we knew that offensive line was garbage last season, but not a lot of people had a lot of film on Todd Gurley, and he had his moments where he had some down games, but he still overcame it. Now you got a whole off season happening, and you be able to get defensive coordinators. They're not stupid, they're smart, and they're going to plan the scheme against that. And if you don't add any pieces on the offensive line or even in the wide receivers or tight ends that can be able to divert the attention, he's going to be a dud. They're going to shut that down and make you go somewhere else. And it didn't help that they didn't really start passing the ball to him until late in the season.
That was the other thing. Where was that? I mean, pass the ball to the man. He proved he could catch the ball out of the backfield. Pass the ball to him. And it was almost like they were afraid to try that because maybe with the quarterback situation, they were afraid of easy pick sixes from the defense or something. But it was bad. And that I think is a big reason why Jeff Fisher ends up getting fired. Because, I mean, he had a high-powered running back, supposedly one of the best running backs in the league, and couldn't make it work. Yeah. That's bad. That is hot garbage.
That's very bad.
For the record,
I
was going to say, CJ and Ryan both had Todd Gurley as the number one back. I had David Johnson as the number one back. So
CJ and who?
And Ryan.
CJ and who? Who's that?
Okay.
Yeah, I see what you're doing.
Just putting this out there, CJ was also the lowest on David Johnson and Ezekiel Elliott out of the group of us.
Where did I have David Johnson? Number 3?
4.
4?
Yeah.
Wow.
4? That is disrespectful, CJ.
Well, listen, man. You guys didn't do anything on offensive line. So listen. That was bad. I mean, look, man, I make mistakes. I mean, I didn't make
I'm only human.
I didn't make as many mistakes as Griffin did with his wide receivers and stuff.
Blow out everyone's ears,
everybody screwed up the wide receivers this year. My goodness, that was bad.
Yeah, that 0 RB really worked out for all those people who were preaching it. So, but we got to get out of here. We are way over our timetable. So that's going to do it for us today, guys. Please make sure you tune in on Friday. We will be back. We'll have a lot of more fun things. I can really talk. We're going to have a lot more fun things to talk about. I know. I just can't talk. I don't know what it is. A Studs of the Year. Oh, that's not right at all. So anyway, make sure you guys visit us on Patreon, patreon.com/the Fantasy Football Fanatics. If you guys want to help support the show, that's where you got to go. And our conversation is going to be, again, a member-requested show talking about top keepers at each position. So that should be fun. Remember, website is live. That's where I'm pulling up all these old rankings from right now. TheFantasyFootballFanatics.com. Again, TheFantasyFootballFanatics.com. And as always, please subscribe and rate and review. Please rate the show on iTunes, on Stitcher. Helps the show out a ton, and we're going to be here all spring, summer long as we move into next season. And again, if you want to follow us, get news, have a chat with us, whatever the case may be, follow us on Twitter at the FF Fanatics, or individually, myself at GPalmerFFF, CJ at CJ Hickman89, or Jason at Jason Cabrera 13. So any parting thoughts before we sign off, guys?
Guys,
Griffin
I apologize.
English as well.
Yes. Apologize for our bad choices. My bad choices as far as projections. I hope you.
Oh, dude, we all do that, man.
Everybody makes mistakes.
But honorable men admit their mistakes.
Okay.
That is true.
You know what I'm saying?
Unlike
Griffin. Thank you. You saw where I was going with that.
I saw where you were going with that.
I admitted my mistake. I voted Brandon Marshall. I didn't want to, but I did.
Brandon Marshall.
All right, yeah.
That was
my big drop the ball by far on the season. So
yeah.
But again,
all
the math
like
was
there.
Everything was there to say that he would at least repeat around what he had done last year, if not do better. He was in better shape. The offense was back. They were clicking. We're gonna get fired up.
I hope this is the outro. This is the outro music while you're doing it.
No, the outro's not playing. I'm gonna play the outro now.
Not?
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Do the outro now.
Outro. Boom. All right.
You can keep talking about Brandon Marshall, though, while you.
It was statistically the right call with Ryan Fitzpatrick coming back. Nothing had changed. More time in the system. Everybody was healthy. He was in better shape. It looked good. That's all I'm saying. Everyone take care. Bye.
Come on, man. You had to know that Fitzpatrick was a fluke in 2015. I mean, come on. He had done nothing in his entire career and suddenly blew up.
Let the healing begin, Griffin. Let it heal.